So, welcome back to my beginner's guide to SimCity, in which I offer some tips, some strategies, some advice, some hints to help you have success with your city, your cities, and your region. We are looking at the highway entrance and we are looking at the lifeblood of your city. If this is not the most important aspect of having success with a city, it is definitely near the top. So let's spend some time talking about this. At the beginning of a city, this is the only way in to a city. Yes, eventually you can have rail, you can have shipping, you can have air transportation, but this is the only way in which residents will move into your city, and it will more than likely be the primary source of goods, products, resources coming into your city. This is also how tourists come into your city and other visitors and shoppers, students. So it's really important. Let's spend some time talking about this. I get lots of questions asking about traffic when I visit cities. This is one of the areas in which it seems like sometimes the city struggles. And I look and I see traffic lined up along the regional highways. So let's spend some time going over the entrance to a city, and then let's also go over some potential options and ways to approach and how to look at traffic and how to potentially see potential issues that may happen down the line. So most cities have this one entrance into them. Yes, there are some cities that have two highway entrances, but I really want to focus this conversation on the single highway entrance. You can take what we talk about and apply it to the two entrance city plots, but because most cities have one entrance, this is where I want to focus my conversation. So, on one hand, I want you to be creative. I want you to have fun. I want you to have different approaches to traffic and road layout. But on the other hand, I want to just go over some things just to make sure you understand how the simulation is working, how the simulated drivers are approaching traffic. That way, while you're being creative, you're still being aware of potential issues. So let's get started with the highway. So now if you're watching early videos on this version of SimCity, and this is something that I did, one of the things that you would notice is a mayor would start their city something very similar to that. So they would run the highway directly into a road, and the mayor would start creating more roads, more intersections, just start the process of creating neighborhoods. Let's zoom in. So what we have here is we have a four-way intersection coming into the city. Now, most times when you're starting out with low density dirt road or a low density road. Traffic coming into a low density road off of this highway, if it is going straight ahead, left or right, as you can see, it does not have to stop. There isn't a stop sign or a stop light. Traffic leaving in this direction does not have to stop. On this side of the road, there is a stop sign, and on this side of the road, there is a stop sign. So, in those early stages of creating a city, the traffic is going to flow quite nicely. You're going to have very low population, and everything is going to seem to be working just fine. As you start the process of upgrading your road system, now we have medium density. The highway coming into the city now meets a stoplight. So we've got stoplights at all 4 points of this intersection. So now the opportunity arises where traffic coming into the city, coming off of either lane, goes a short distance and it hits a light. As you progress with more upgrades, same situation. Even when you transition from a road to a highway, same thing. You're running into lights. This was the way that I started so many of my early cities. But so many times I would run into issues with traffic. And the one thing that you have to start to think about is you have to think about real life situations. In real life, does traffic come off of a highway and directly into an area that is zoned, such as residential, commercial, industrial, or is there a transition from the highway to your city? So, with that in mind, what I want to do is I want to develop a city on this city plot. Probably just going to stick with the grid, get the city up and running. I'm going to run the road directly into the city. And then let's talk about how the simulation is treating the traffic flow. And let's look at ways of potentially creating that transition, that buffer between the highway and your city. All right, so here's our city. We've got all of our zones, of course, residential, commercial, industrial. I've got my services set up as far as the power and the water and sewage, fire, health, police. Back here, we've got ourselves 2 processor factories. So we are exporting processors. We're importing the resources for the processors, alloy and plastic. I have a bit of tourism taking place with an expo center, some gambling. My bus station is here. And of course, the residents, shoppers, employees. All of this is dependent on this one intersection. So now the first thing that I always think about when I look at this is as this city is going to continue to grow and expand, I'm going to have several factors all competing for potentially one intersection. We've got our specialization. We've got delivery trucks coming and going, bringing in resources or exporting out resources. And for a lot of cities, this is that critical thing that they need in order to survive. We also have once a day people coming in for an event. We've got people that are wanting to come into the city to gamble. We've got people going from residential on the left, traveling to industrial on the right. I'm going to turn on, let's click on roads, and we can see some areas of yellow, we can see some areas of red. So what we're looking at a combination of things. We're looking at, it's going on, it's 9:30 in the morning, so this is that morning rush. First of all, before we even talk about people getting in and out of the city, we've got people going from here in this direction to shop or all the way over to work. We've got goods being produced and taken in the opposite direction to our commercial areas as well as the trade depot. On top of that, so we've got a left-right flow, but on top of that, we've got plenty of delivery trucks and buses, tourist bus. So I already know that there are some potential issues that may be awaiting. So what we want to do, what I always try to work on is how do we lessen the burden, lessen the pressure on this intersection? Well, the first thing is, and it's not really always what you want to do, but just the simple fact that we have an extended highway. So instead of coming right off the highway, because if you think about it, we are dependent on just two lanes coming in and two lanes going out. So the highway traffic from the regional highway is going to get funneled into one lane in either direction, and our traffic leaving the city is going to get funneled into one lane leaving the city in either direction. So what can happen is telling the traffic to stop this early into a city is one way to start a backup. So one thing that you can do is you can look at this and you can think about zones. You can think about the fact that traffic is trying to move left, right, up, down throughout the city. The zone that jumps out to me the most is this zone. Many times if I'm early into a region, this is what's so important. I want to make sure that my traffic has unimpeded flow in and out of the city because those exports, that's where this city may be relying heavily in order to survive. The other thing that I want to think about is my tourist traffic. Back here as well, I've got residents, I've got deliveries that might be taking place, so that's another zone. I've got an area here, and then I've got my industrial area. So when you start thinking about the city in zones, and you can start thinking about ways, how do I relieve that pressure? So let's pause. When you watch me build a city, it is rare, if ever, that you will see me build a city where I do not create a roundabout. I love roundabouts simply because of the fact that they help with that distribution of traffic. So let's start the process. Let's put together a roundabout. Now, what's going to happen is we are still creating an intersection but we're not creating a four-way intersection. So yes, we're still dealing with lights, but the traffic coming in is not having to worry about that fourth flow. The traffic is only going to go left or right, and it's not having to deal with traffic, because if you think about it, if we run our interstate directly into here, not only is it dealing with this intersection, but each building is an intersection because cars are coming and going from these buildings. So the simulation looks at each building, the entrance of each building, as an intersection. So this intersection has four sets of lights, but in this direction, there's a building, building, building. Those are all treated as intersections as far as the simulation is concerned. So now let's think about those zones. Let's think about how can we create that buffer? How can we make it so that the traffic has an easier flow? So one way of creating that buffer is we can create a highway network within the city. And now that we've done that, remember the simulation, the cars, they are looking for the shortest path. So if we were to create, and you notice I'm not creating it right there. I want to be a little bit off. I don't want a four-way, or I would like to avoid a four-way intersection. We could do that. We could tell the traffic to come here, and we can tell the traffic to come there. Then we can create connections like that. So now we have a link, but it's not a four-way intersection. So we're giving the residents three ways to get here and then out of the city. You can always monitor it. As I look at this, the one thing that I would be concerned about are intersections too close to each other, but we're already starting, as you can see how the vehicles are spreading out. These buses, the simulation says we want to get there. So why not go this way? Let's go to the left. Delivery trucks are going to go in this direction. They're going to take this route. So we're already starting to spread the traffic out. And a lot of our red areas, they've now gone to a shade of yellow to green. Over in this corner of the city, we've got the Expo Center. We've got people that are going to come in for tourist purposes to attend the event. We've got a bus terminal, gambling center. We can create another, remember the simulation, what is the quickest way that I can get visitors to this area? How can I relieve some of that pressure? You want to experiment and see. Let's take a look. We've got some traffic. We've got some buses taking our new connection. Is that the fastest? Is that the best method? It looks like a lot of buses are taking it, but there are some buses that are going that way as well. So you can always experiment. What is the best way to take care of getting traffic from one location to another? Is this a situation where what I want to do something like this? A direct route. Is that the shortest distance? Will we have a combination? There's a car. We've got vehicles taking both sets of routes. Looks like this has become the shortest route. The simulation is saying, yes, this is what we're looking for. I am bypassing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 intersections. Let's come over here. I do not want to impede the traffic here. This is, in my opinion, when I'm working on a city, this is the most critical thing that I want. I want this traffic to be able to get in and out of the city without any complications. I do not like for my specialized industry to actually be a part to be connected to the city. I only want traffic to come here that is dedicated, that's purpose is to go to this area. So let's make some little adjustments. In order to accommodate my in my specialized industrial area. This way we disrupt as few industrial buildings as possible. Now, this industrial area or specialized industrial area has its own roadway set up. It's its own neighborhood. If people want to go to work here, then they have a highway network set up for them. But I don't want this part of the city where just everybody is driving through it. And I've made a couple of little adjustments. I've added another connection there, and I've moved some of these intersections around so they weren't so close to each other. So let's talk about some additional fine tuning. If you look at the distance from when they come into the city to when they reach their first intersection or their first set of lights, yes, you could say that's a bit of a short distance. So we can do more fine tuning and adjust where the roundabout is located and give this stretch of highway more space and more distance. So now by shifting the roundabout over, we are now increasing the distance from getting off the regional highway along this portion of the highway into the roundabout. We're still dealing with a T intersection as opposed to a four-way intersection, but we've just increased that distance so that cars are not immediately getting off the expressway and running into a stop. A lot of times, if there is water underneath the area where the roundabout is, I will make the roundabout big enough so that I can place my water pumping station and my sewage inside this area. That way, I'm still making use, I'm getting the most use out of the limited territory, the limited city plots that we have. Your roundabout is also a good place for park and rides. So as you can see, it is 9:30 a.m. So for the simulation, this is that morning rush. First of all, we have almost 5,000 more residents than at the beginning of the tutorial. And as you can see, we do not have as many hotspots in the city. You're not going to completely get rid of traffic. That's unrealistic. But compared to the way this was at the beginning of the tutorial, much, much better. And it shows you areas in which, if you wanted to continue to tweak, you could do more tweaking. But if you'll remember, this middle section was heavily congested, whereas now it's not nearly as heavily congested. And in my opinion, in addition to being functional and helping out your city by creating that buffer and a transition from the regional highway into the city, I think when you create roundabouts or whatever way you come up with a transition between the city and the highway, I think it adds to the look. So it's not just a functional feature, but I think the city even looks a little bit nicer, cooler, more interesting, more detailed. But that concludes our conversation talking about traffic getting in and out of the city. I hope this has been helpful. If, as always, if there's something I need to revisit, I'm more than happy to hold on to this city for future tutorials. Just, yeah, let me know in the comments if there's something that I need to cover, if this has answered one question but raised another question. Just let me know, and I'm more than happy to do another episode where we're talking about either roundabouts or we're talking about getting in and out of your city or traffic in general. Do you have questions about traffic within the city? More than happy to talk about that as well. So, yeah, thank you for watching. Have fun, enjoy the game, and we will see you next time.